John Wayne. The name conjures images of indomitable spirit, steely resolve, and extraordinary courage. He lived and played the hero to perfection, both on and off screen, becoming the quintessential model for a resilient America. The world always saw a duke who never faltered, an eternal icon. However, few know that the path of this great man was also fraught with thorns, and an emotional wound was never exposed to light. This video will unveil the secret, bringing you closer to the moments of weakness, the profound pains that silently gnawed at the soul of the silver screen's greatest hero, the halo and the cruel price. John Wayne became an American cultural icon with over 170 films in 5 decades. His unflinching cowboys, heroic Western heroes, and brave military leaders gave millions the image of an indestructible guy who never gave up. He spent his life in film creating a invincible hero image that a nation respected and emulated. He exuded might and iron will with every solid step, determined squint and gravelly line. But John Wayne's private life was cruelly harmed by this big career, which required almost complete sacrifice of time and energy. The more the spotlight shone and the public's expectations pressed on him, the crueler and more expensive his personal happiness, especially in his family and love life. Despite his fame and loving fans, the man often felt lonely at home. His obsessive cinematic career kept him from peace. His demanding shooting schedules and long trips to foreign locations drained him and destroyed his closest connections. His time and energy spent on screen as Duke left him little time for his marriage and fatherhood. He conquered every enemy in his films, but his home's growing chill and distance defeated him. His great career, while garnering him ultimate fame, also left deep scars in this man of steel's heart, causing him to pay too high a price for personal satisfaction that no title or medal could ever compensate for. You'll see from his story that greatness was a double-edged sword, progressively cutting the most sacred links of attachment and leaving him with a mute melancholy no heroic role could fill. That pain may have plagued him and affected his later relationships. The pains were what made him vulnerable, he finally confessed. The beginning and the silent pain. John Wayne was a shining light on screen, a man of steel who could weather any storm to defend his loved ones, but in his personal life he had 3 failed marriages. These 3 divorces ripped deep into a man's heart who wanted a tranquil home, but fate wouldn't let him. His first marriage to Josephine Sayans, a conservative Catholic Panamanian woman, appeared like a safe sanctuary for an ambitious John Wayne. They had 4 children, Michael, Mary, Antonia, Patrick, and Melinda, after marrying in 1933, while his career was only beginning. Building a family gave him stability and the delight of being a parent and husband. Josephine represented peace, faith, and traditional values in contrast to Hollywood's glitzy, boisterous, and enticing environment. Wayne's family life waned as his business grew. He and Josephine were separated by his seemingly compulsive work ethic, difficult production schedules, endless long flights to foreign locations, and eventual transformation into the impenetrable John Wayne on screen. Hollywood's norms and pressures took over his time and mind, pushing him to stray further from his uncomplicated family life. Cracks appeared. Private and conventional Josephine struggled to adapt to the liberal film industry lifestyle her husband was increasingly enmeshed in. She was undoubtedly lonely, left behind by a husband who seemed to focus on work and public image. Whether true or not, Wayne's extramarital affairs, particularly with Marlene Dietrich, whom Josephine later cited in her divorce papers, bred distrust, jealousy, and betrayal. In 1945, John Wayne's 12-year marriage dissolved, bringing his first deep regret of not building an eternal home. It was a profound scar of helplessness in being unable to support a complete family, and a reminder that even the strongest man can be injured in life. The storm of pain and ruin. If his first marriage to Josephine was a quiet, regretful breakup, his relationship with Esperanza Bauer, or Chata, was a true storm fiercely and publicly devastating John Wayne's soul. He met Chata, a fiery Mexican actress, shortly after his first marriage ended. With her captivating beauty and strong personality, Esperanza likely brought him a fresh breeze, a passion he had lost. They married in 1946, but after only a short time, the sweetness of love turned into the bitterness of suspicion and conflict. This marriage lasted a mere 7 years, but every day was a battle. Esperanza, with her blunt personality and almost pathological jealousy, frequently unleashed her anger on John Wayne. She couldn't accept his dedicating too much time to work or his social relationships outside of it, especially with female co-stars. Imagine a man of steel like Wayne, who always commanded every situation on screen, having to face harsh accusations and fiery arguments in his own home. Some nights their shouting echoed throughout the neighborhood, shattering the peaceful image the public mistakenly held of hero John Wayne. The tragic climax came with public accusations of violence and betrayal during their divorce. Esperanza didn't hesitate to accuse Wayne of infidelity with co-star Gail Russell, and even claimed she had tried to attack him with a gun out of extreme jealousy. The most painful private details of his life were exposed in newspapers, becoming public gossip. For a man who valued honor and his image as much as John Wayne did, having his personal wounds torn open in public was certainly a source of shame and profound hurt. It was a public degradation of his image, an attack on his very pride. The Esperanza storm left indelible scars on John Wayne's soul. It wasn't just the breakdown of a marriage, but a haunting experience of suspicion, betrayal, and feeling tormented within his most intimate relationship. This marriage likely hardened his heart somewhat, making him more cautious, even more solitary in later relationships. He could defeat any foe on screen, but he was utterly powerless against the angry fires of his spouse's jealousy. A cruel reminder that even heroes have their own battles they cannot win. The final haven and the quiet loneliness. After the storms of his 2 previous marriages, especially with Esperanza, the appearance of Pilar Palete, a younger, graceful Peruvian woman, likely brought John Wayne a new glimmer of hope for a peaceful haven. They married in 1954 and had 3 children, Isa, Ethan, and Marissa. This marriage lasted until John Wayne's death in 1979, becoming the longest relationship of his life. It seemed destined to be the perfect ending for the great hero, where he would find stability and complete family happiness. However, even in this most enduring relationship, cracks quietly appeared, leaving behind lingering pain and loneliness. Although Pilar once shared that Wayne deeply loved his wife and children, and always tried to be a good husband and father, she also admitted a cruel truth: they could hardly compete with his career and his burning political passion. John Wayne was more than just an actor. He was an icon, an unofficial statesman, a man who seemed to belong to the whole world, not just his family. Demanding filming schedules, continuous long business trips away from home, and later a deeper involvement in political activities robbed him of countless precious hours that a wife and young children needed. This wasn't the pain of betrayal or violence as in the previous marriage, but a deeper, more simmering sorrow, loneliness within his own home. Pilar had to watch her husband, whom she loved, being increasingly pulled away by the relentless demands of fame and his public image. It was the tragedy of loving a legend, when you have to accept that a part of them will never truly belong to you. The peak of their estrangement was when John Wayne and Pilar separated in 1973, 6 years before he passed away, though they never officially divorced. Living separately while still maintaining friendly relations confirmed a painful truth: even his longest relationship couldn't provide him with a complete home until the end of his life. Even the most peaceful haven couldn't fully keep the hero, perhaps, because he gave so much to the spotlight, leaving too little for himself. In his final years, as John Wayne faced a life-and-death battle against cancer, he often lived alone or only with the care of close relatives and friends. This was the loneliness of a great man who went through 3 marriages, witnessed the breakdown of hope for a complete home 3 times, and ultimately had to face the fiercest battles of his life, illness, death, in a certain solitude. This is the cruel price of greatness, admired by the whole world, yet having to endure silent loneliness even in his own home and in the very last moments of his life. The solitary health battle. If broken relationships were the pains gnawing at John Wayne's soul from within, then his persistent battle with illness was a direct assault on his very invincible fortress. This was his fiercest battlefield, where the hero had to face an invisible and merciless enemy, cancer. In 1964, shocking news spread: John Wayne was diagnosed with lung cancer. Imagine his feelings at that moment. The man who had fought hundreds of foes on screen, who had lived with an indomitable image, now faced a disease slowly devouring his body. The physical pain from the illness, from major surgeries to remove one lung, and from the recovery process surely tormented him. In the quiet of late nights, without the stage lights or the audience's applause, did he feel the fear, the weakness he always hid from the world. He still tried to appear strong in public, even joking about only having one lung, but that was merely the facade the hero used to conceal his profound pain and ultimate anxiety. Later, the relentless disease continued to cling to him. By the late 1970s, the cancer had metastasized to his stomach. This time, the battle was even more brutal. His body rapidly deteriorated. Chemotherapy and radiation treatments drained the strength of a man who was once a symbol of intense vitality. His hair thinned his once robust physique, now showed signs of weariness, and his steely gaze sometimes held a hint of sadness. Remarkably, he had to face most of this battle in solitude. As mentioned, his 3rd marriage to Pilar had led to separation. Although he had children, friends, and close relatives by his side, the burden of illness, of impending death, is a journey each person must take alone. This was the loneliness of a man who was once the center of the world, now having to fight death in silence with no cameras or roles to shield him. Even Duke had to confront the specter of death, a final battle no one can win, a stark reminder of the finite nature of human life, no matter how great one might be. This health battle wasn't just physical pain, it was also the emotional anguish of seeing the invincible image he had spent a lifetime building now forced to bow before illness. He fought until his last breath, but ultimately his greatness lay in the very fact that he was human, as vulnerable and susceptible as anyone else, yet he fought resiliently until the very end. That was the final tragedy, and also the deepest human lesson from the life of the hero John Wayne: the pain of public scrutiny. Beyond the tragedies of his personal life and physical battles with illness, John Wayne also bore another silent pain: the piercing criticism from the very public he served. As an icon of patriotism and conservative spirit, he didn't hesitate to express his political views, especially during a tumultuous period in American history. He made films like The Green Berets to showcase his deep belief in American values and support for the Vietnam War. However, this very steadfastness made him a target of fierce opposition from a large segment of society. Imagine this: a hero who spent his life building an unshakable image, admired by millions, now facing public condemnation, labeled as outdated or even extreme. The pain came not just from critiques in newspapers, but from the profound feeling of being misunderstood by the very nation he deeply loved and believed in. Words can cut like knives, sometimes even more painfully than an enemy's sword on screen. In solitude amidst his battles with illness, he also had to face another fight, defending his honor and beliefs against public opinion. This pain was magnified as he, a man who always projected invincibility, was powerless against the prejudices and judgments from the very people he wished to represent. It was the tragedy of a hero turned upon by his own audience, even if only in part, adding yet another layer of scars to his already deeply wounded soul. We've seen a John Wayne who was not only a resilient icon on screen, but also a flesh-and-blood human being harboring deep pains in love, family, and his solitary battle with illness. John Wayne's life is a poignant reminder that in the end, no one is truly invincible. No matter how grand the hero's cloak he wore, no matter how thunderous the applause, he could not escape life's everyday storms, marital breakdowns, the anguish of an absent father, the sharp darts of public criticism, and finally, the relentless fight against a cruel disease. These pains didn't diminish his greatness. On the contrary, they painted a more authentic, relatable, and respectable John Wayne than ever before. Perhaps these very scars are what truly define a human being. The pains John Wayne endured from his first broken love, the tragic Esperanza storm, to the quiet loneliness in his final marriage and his solitary health battle, teach us a profound lesson. It's a lesson about the finite nature of human life, about how even the most extraordinary individuals must confront very ordinary tragedies. For those of us at our age who have navigated life's many ups and downs, this understanding surely resonates even more deeply. Perhaps each of us carries untold stories, hidden scars that not everyone sees. John Wayne, by living and battling with both his glamorous image and his personal pain, left a legacy greater than his films. It is the legacy of a human being who dared to live fully, who dared to face both the light and the shadow of life. And so we realize that the greatest strength doesn't lie in the absence of pain, but in how we confront it, in quiet resilience, and in the dignity of a heart once wounded, yet still striving. John Wayne's life is an epic saga, but also a lament, leaving us with deep contemplation on the true meaning of courage and humanity. The deep scars from his relationships and family life didn't diminish John Wayne's greatness. On the contrary, they portrayed a more authentic, complete, and profound human being. They show us that even a titan like Duke was a flesh-and-blood man with yearnings for family happiness, failures in love, and unhealed pains. It was his ability to face these cruel personal challenges with dignity and quiet resilience that redefined the very essence of true strength. John Wayne's legacy isn't just in his classic roles or prestigious awards. His greatest legacy is the story of a complex human being who lived fully through both the dazzling light of fame and the dark shadows of family pain. He taught us that greatness isn't about having no weaknesses, but about daring to face them. And perhaps it is precisely these scars of family and love that truly make him a greater man than anything we ever saw on screen.